My daughter kicked me out of the house, saying, "I don't need another mouth to feed," and left me penniless on the street. But when I became rich by building a successful business from scratch, she came running to ask for $2 million to pay off her debts. I smiled and said, "I have something better," and gave her something that turned her life upside down. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The front door slammed like a gunshot. I looked up from the evening news, a half-eaten imported cookie still in my hand. Amanda stood in the doorway, her work bag sliding off her shoulder, keys dangling from white knuckles. "Again." Her voice cut through the room. "You're sitting here again." The plate of cookies sat on the side table next to my chair. 3 missing from the neat row she'd arranged this morning. Her expensive ones from that fancy bakery downtown. "I was just eating my food." She dropped her bag with a thud. "Those cookies cost $12, Dad. $12 for 6 cookies, and you've eaten half the box." I set the remote down carefully. "Amanda, I didn't realize." "Of course you didn't realize." She kicked off her heels, one landing against the wall with a sharp crack. "You don't realize anything. The bills piling up, me working 50-hour weeks while you sit here like some kind of guest." The television droned on behind her voice. Something about traffic delays on I-270. I muted it. "I pay for groceries with my pension check, every month just like we agreed." "Your tiny pension check." She laughed, but nothing was funny about the sound. $800 that barely covers the electric bill. Meanwhile, you eat my food, use my internet, my cable, my heat. I stood up slowly, my knees creaking. "What's this really about?" "This is about me coming home exhausted every single day to find you lounging around like you're on vacation." Her face was flushed red now. "Lost the Morrison account today. $20,000 in revenue, gone. You know what my boss said? Maybe you need to focus more on work instead of personal problems." "I'm sorry about your account, but..." "Personal problems." She stepped closer. "That's what you are, Dad. A personal problem I can't afford anymore." The words hit me like cold water. 8 months since Margaret died. 8 months of Amanda insisting I stay here, that she needed the company, that it made financial sense for both of us. "I don't understand what you want me to..." "I want you gone." The words came out flat, final. "I don't need an extra mouth to feed. Find somewhere else to live." My chest tightened. "You don't mean that." "I absolutely mean that." She was already walking toward the stairs. "Pack your things. Tonight." "Amanda, please. Where am I supposed to go?" She paused on the 3rd step. "I don't know, and frankly, I don't care. Figure it out like an adult." Her footsteps disappeared down the upstairs hallway. A door slammed. I stood there for several minutes, the television flickering silently. The news had moved on to weather. Rain expected tomorrow. The suitcase came down from the closet easier than I'd expected. 20 minutes to pack 8 months of living. Clothes, medications, Margaret's jewelry box, the photo from our honeymoon. It all fit with room to spare. Amanda emerged from her bedroom as I wheeled the suitcase toward the front door. She'd changed into sweatpants and tied her hair back. Looked younger, but her eyes stayed hard. "The key." She held out her palm. I worked it off the ring slowly. It felt heavier than it should have. She snatched it before I could set it down gently. "Amanda." The door opened. Cool September air rushed in, carrying the smell of burning leaves from somewhere down the street. "Goodbye, Dad." The door closed behind me with a soft click. The porch light stayed off. I stood there with my suitcase, listening to the lock turn. Streetlights flickered on one by one down Oakwood Drive. Mrs. Patterson's cat watched me from her front window. The handle of my suitcase cut into my palm as I finally started walking. The park bench felt like concrete against my spine. September nights in Ohio carried more bite than I'd remembered. My jacket, wrinkled from sleeping in it, offered little protection against the dampness seeping through the wooden slats. Dawn broke gray and uninviting. Coffee shops wouldn't open for another hour. I splashed water from the fountain on my face and combed my hair with my fingers. "Dignity first," Margaret used to say. "Always lead with dignity." Bob Martinez was watering his front flower beds when I approached. We'd shared fence-line conversations for 3 years, talked about the weather and lawn care. His hose stopped mid-spray when he saw me coming up his walkway. "Jim." He set the hose down carefully. "How you doing?" Been better, Bob. The suitcase felt heavier in daylight. I was wondering if you might have a spare room, just temporarily, until I can find something permanent. His face shifted. Behind him, through the screen door, I caught sight of his wife peering out from behind the kitchen curtain. Gosh, Jim, I wish I could help. He wiped his hands on his pants. But Maria's mother is visiting from Mexico. Staying indefinitely? You know how it is with family. Of course, I understand. Maybe try the Pattersons? They've got that big house. Mrs. Patterson didn't answer her door. Her car sat in the driveway, and the morning news played loud enough to hear from the porch, but she never came to the door. I knocked 3 times, waited 5 minutes between each one. The Johnsons lived 2 blocks over. Nice people, always waved from their car. Their teenage son answered the door, called for his parents in a voice that suggested this was unusual. Mr. Carter? Mrs. Johnson appeared, drying her hands on a dish towel. Is everything all right? I'm looking for a place to stay temporarily. I can pay rent, help with household work. Oh my. She looked past me to where Mr. Johnson stood in the hallway, shaking his head slightly. I'm sorry, but we've got a family situation right now. My husband's hours got cut at the plant, and we're barely managing as it is. 3 phone calls from the gas station payphone, a quarter each. Cousin Robert in Toledo didn't answer. 6 rings, then voicemail. I left a message explaining my situation, asked him to call me back at the shelter number I'd found in the phone book. My nephew in Cincinnati picked up on the 2nd ring. Uncle Jim? Danny sounded surprised. I thought you were living with Amanda. That didn't work out. I was hoping you might have space for a few weeks while I find my own place. A long pause, children arguing in the background. Man, I wish I could help, but we're packed tight here. Kelly's pregnant again, and we're already using the spare room for storage. There's just no room. I see. Maybe try Aunt Ruth in Akron. She's got that big place since Uncle Pete died. Ruth answered but couldn't talk long. Her new husband didn't like visitors, especially family from Pete's side. You understand how it is with second marriages, Jimmy. Everything's complicated. The social services office smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in harsh white. I sat between a young woman with 2 crying toddlers and an elderly man who kept checking his watch. Mr. Carter? The caseworker, Mrs. Rodriguez, called my name after an hour wait. Her office was smaller than a closet, but she'd made it warm with family photos and a small plant on the windowsill. First time accessing our services? Yes, ma'am. I explained about Margaret's death, living with Amanda, the sudden eviction. She took notes without judgment. We can get you into a temporary shelter tonight. Clean bed, 3 meals a day, but you'll need to start looking for permanent housing immediately. The waiting list for subsidized housing is 18 months. The shelter sat downtown, a converted warehouse with rows of metal beds separated by thin curtains. The man in the bunk next to mine introduced himself as Carlos. Lost his job at the auto plant 6 months ago. Couldn't make rent. First night's always the hardest, he told me as I arranged my few belongings in the small locker. But the people here are good people, just down on their luck. Dinner was served at 6. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans. Better than I'd expected. I sat with Carlos and 2 other men, listened to their stories. Factory closures, medical bankruptcies, family disputes. Everyone had a reason for being here. Mrs. Rodriguez gave me a newspaper the next morning, circled rental listings in red ink. Start with these, she said. Your pension should cover something basic, but you'll need first month's rent plus security deposit. I folded the paper carefully and put it in my shirt pocket. The classified section felt like a lifeline. Each circled address a possibility for rebuilding. The house on Maple Street looked tired but honest. Peeling white paint, front steps that sagged slightly, windows that needed washing. But the bones were solid and the rent was within reach. Frank Morrison met me at the front door, keys jingling in his weathered hands. 70-something, wearing work boots that had seen decades of use. $800 a month, he said, leading me through rooms that echoed with emptiness. First month and security deposit up front, heat and electric separate. The kitchen was small but functional. Gas stove that looked reliable, refrigerator that hummed quietly. Hardwood floors throughout, scarred but intact. I'll take it. Frank studied my face. Most folks want to think it over, maybe look at other places. I don't need to look anywhere else. We shook hands in the kitchen. His grip was firm, calloused from work I recognized. When can you move in? Today, if that works for you. That first night, I slept on the floor in a sleeping bag borrowed from the shelter. The house settled around me with creaks and sighs, like an old man finding his comfortable position. Streetlights threw patterns on the ceiling through bare windows. The thrift store on High Street had everything I needed. Kitchen table for $30, 2 chairs for $15 each, a mattress and box spring for $60. The elderly volunteer helped me load everything into Frank's pickup truck. He'd offered to help move things, said he remembered what starting over felt like. Margaret's tools waited in storage like old friends. The box labeled Jim's workshop in her careful handwriting. Saw, hammer, chisels, sandpaper, wood stain. Everything she'd bought me that Christmas when I mentioned wanting to try woodworking again. The garage behind the house became my focus, 30 by 20 feet of possibility. I swept out 15 years of accumulated leaves and debris, scrubbed oil stains from the concrete floor, set up a work table in the center where the overhead light was strongest. The first project was simple, a wooden box for storing tools, nothing fancy. My hands remembered the motions slowly, measuring twice, cutting once. The saw felt awkward at first, my grip uncertain, but muscle memory returned like riding a bicycle. The wood shavings curled away from the plane in long, thin spirals. Sweet smell of pine filled the garage. For the first time in months, my mind felt quiet, focused on the task, the grain of the wood, the satisfaction of creating something useful with my hands. 3 days to complete the box. Sanded smooth, stained dark walnut, hinges mounted perfectly flush. I held it up to the light, checking for flaws. Margaret would have been proud. The hardware store clerk looked interested when I showed him the box. "You make this yourself?" "Just started woodworking again, testing the waters." "Nice work, clean joints, good finish." He turned it over, examining the bottom. "You thinking about selling these?" "Maybe, depends on whether people want them." People always want quality craftsmanship, especially something made by hand, not mass-produced. I left the hardware store with a small notebook, pages full of ideas, jewelry boxes, cutting boards, picture frames, simple projects I could complete with basic tools, items people actually used. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table planning my next project. A cookbook stand for someone who liked to cook. Margaret had always wanted one, complained about balancing recipe books against the sugar canister. The plan took shape on paper. Adjustable angle, stable base, wide enough for large books. Something useful, something beautiful. Something that would prove I still had value to offer the world. Outside, autumn wind rattled the windows. Inside, I worked by lamplight, sketching and calculating. For the first time since Margaret's death, I felt like myself again. Not a burden, not an extra mouth to feed. Just a man with skills, making something worthwhile with his own 2 hands. The gift bag felt lighter than it should have in my hand as I walked down Riverside Drive. 5 weeks since that terrible night, and I'd finally worked up the courage to approach Amanda's house. The small jewelry box inside had taken me 3 days to complete, walnut with brass hinges. The kind of craftsmanship that might soften her anger. October air carried the scent of burning leaves. Streetlights flickered on, one by one, as evening settled over the familiar neighborhood. I'd taken the bus here, spent 20 minutes walking in circles, gathering nerve. The silver BMW in her driveway stopped me cold. Amanda drove a Honda, reliable, practical, 3 years old. This car gleamed under the porch light, pristine and expensive. License plate I didn't recognize. I stepped behind the old oak tree across the street, confusion churning in my stomach. Maybe she had company. A friend, perhaps. Someone from work. The front door opened. A man emerged, adjusting his tie with practiced ease. Expensive suit, polished shoes, a gold watch catching the light as he moved. Tall, confident, maybe 45. He turned back toward the house with the familiarity of someone who belonged there. Amanda appeared in the doorway. She wore a dress I'd never seen before, deep blue, elegant, the kind she used to say was too fancy for anywhere she ever went. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and she was smiling. Really smiling, not the strained expression I'd grown used to in those final months. The man cupped her face gently, kissed her with obvious affection. She melted into him, her hands smoothing the lapels of his jacket. They spoke quietly, intimate words I couldn't hear, but recognized in their body language. My chest tightened. "See you tomorrow," he said, his voice carrying across the quiet street. "Drive carefully." She stood on her tiptoes for another kiss. He walked to the BMW like he owned the world. Amanda watched from the doorway until his taillights disappeared around the corner, then closed the door with a soft click. I stood frozen behind the tree, gift bag trembling in my grip. 5 weeks. She'd thrown me out 5 weeks ago, claiming financial stress, saying she couldn't afford an extra mouth to feed. But here was proof of something else entirely, a life I'd never been part of, a relationship that explained everything. How long had this been going on? Months? Longer? The expensive dress, the way she'd touched him, the comfortable routine of their goodbye. This wasn't new. This was established, serious, real, in a way that made my presence an inconvenience rather than a necessity. I wasn't kicked out because of money. I was kicked out to make room. The realization hit like ice water. All those months of growing tension, her increasing irritation with my presence, the way she'd snapped over those ridiculous cookies. It hadn't been about finances. It had been about clearing space for Derek, or whatever his name was. She'd needed me gone so she could have this. The gift bag slipped from my numb fingers, landing silently in the damp grass. I bent to retrieve it mechanically, my hands shaking as I gripped the small package. Everything made sense now. The sudden explosion, the complete lack of warning, the way she'd refused to discuss alternatives. She hadn't been overwhelmed by bills or stressed about my pension contribution. She'd been ready for me to disappear. A light came on in her bedroom window. I turned away before I could see more, walking quickly back toward the bus stop. My footsteps echoed off the empty sidewalk, each step taking me further from the daughter I'd thought I knew. The bus arrived 15 minutes later. I climbed aboard, found a seat in the back, and stared out the window as familiar streets rolled past. The gift bag sat in my lap like evidence of my own foolishness. I'd been planning reconciliation with someone who'd already moved on completely. 3 weeks later, I sold my first piece at the Columbus Farmers Market. A cutting board set, walnut and maple, took me all Thursday night to finish. The customer paid $150 without hesitation. "Beautiful work," she said, running her fingers along the smooth edges. "My daughter's getting married next month. Could you make something similar as a wedding gift?" I handed her my business card, printed at the local copy shop for $12. Miguel had insisted I needed them. "Call me next week. We'll design something special." Miguel Lopez had appeared at my workshop door 3 days after my visit to Amanda's house. 22 years old, fresh out of community college, looking for part-time work to supplement his job at the hardware store. "I heard you were hiring," he'd said, though I hadn't advertised anywhere. "Heard from who?" "Frank Morrison. Said you might need help with your woodworking business." Frank, it turned out, had been talking me up around the neighborhood. The landlord who'd given me a chance was now sending me potential employees. Miguel learned fast. Better than fast. He anticipated what I needed before I asked for it. By November, he was working 20 hours a week, handling the sanding and finishing, while I focused on design and joinery. "You should try selling online," he suggested one afternoon, holding up his phone. "My sister sells jewelry on Instagram, makes good money." I'd never owned a computer, barely understood what Instagram was. But Miguel's enthusiasm was infectious. We spent a Saturday afternoon photographing my work, and he helped me set up accounts on something called Etsy. The first online order arrived 2 weeks later. A customer from Michigan wanted 3 cutting boards shipped by Christmas. Then another order from Illinois. By January, I was getting emails daily. "We need a bigger workspace," Miguel announced in February, looking around the cramped garage, "and better equipment." He was right. Orders were backing up, and I was turning away custom requests because I couldn't keep up. The old circular saw wheezed through hardwood, and my single workbench limited what we could produce simultaneously. The bank meeting terrified me. Janet Stevens, the loan officer, studied my financial statements with skeptical eyes. 6 months of business records, tax documents, bank statements showing steady deposits. "You're 68, she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am. Starting a business at retirement age is unusual. Age doesn't change the quality of my work." She picked up a wooden business card holder from her desk, one I'd given her as a sample, turned it over, examined the dovetail joints, ran her thumb across the finish. "This is exceptional craftsmanship." Thank you. How much are you averaging monthly? Last month was 8,000. This month is tracking higher. Her eyebrows rose. 8,000 gross or net? Net. After materials and Miguel's wages. The loan approval came through in March. $50,000 for equipment and workspace expansion, backed by my growing business revenue and the house I'd already paid off early. Miguel found the perfect space, a former auto repair shop with high ceilings, good lighting, and room for multiple workstations. 2,000 square feet for $1,200 a month. We can fit 4 workbenches easy, he said, pacing off the space, plus room for inventory storage and a customer consultation area. By April, we were producing 30 pieces a week. Miguel had brought in his cousin Sarah, a college student studying business who handled our online presence and customer service. Our Instagram followers hit 5,000. Orders were booking 3 weeks out. The money felt surreal. Deposits every few days, amounts that dwarfed my pension check. I opened a business savings account, started planning for the future instead of just surviving day to day. Frank Morrison stopped by the workshop one evening in May, admiring the operation I'd built. "You've done something remarkable here, Jim. Couldn't have done it without good people helping." I gestured toward Miguel, who was teaching Sarah proper staining technique. "You thought about a bigger house? Nice neighborhood? Yard for entertaining?" I had thought about it. The rental on Maple Street had served its purpose, but success demanded better surroundings. Professional appearance mattered for client meetings. "Found a place on Elmwood Avenue," I told him. 3 bedrooms, attached garage, 1/4-acre lot. "That's a nice area. Expensive. I can afford it now." The words felt strange in my mouth. 6 months ago, I'd been sleeping in a homeless shelter. Now, I was discussing mortgage payments larger than some people's annual salaries. We moved the business to the new commercial space in late May. The grand reopening drew local media attention. Photographer from the Columbus Dispatch, reporter asking questions about senior entrepreneurship. "What drives someone to start over completely at your age?" Jessica Chen asked, notepad ready. "Sometimes life doesn't give you a choice," I replied. "You can sit around feeling sorry for yourself, or you can build something new." Miguel grinned from across the workshop. Sarah took photos for social media. Orders poured in from the publicity. Success tasted better than I'd expected. But late at night, alone in my new house, I still wondered if Amanda knew what I'd accomplished, if she cared, if she ever thought about the father she'd discarded like an unwanted piece of furniture. The newspaper article would run Sunday. My story, my achievement, proof that her assessment of me had been completely wrong. Jessica Chen's article hit the front page of the Columbus Dispatch's Sunday business section with a headline that made me wince. "From homeless to homeowner, local seniors woodworking success." The photo showed me in my workshop, hands positioned on a half-finished dining table, wood shavings scattered across the floor like evidence of productivity. I looked older than I felt, but competent. Successful. My phone started ringing before 8 a.m. "Is this James Carter from the newspaper?" "Yes, ma'am." "I'd like to order a hope chest for my granddaughter, something like what you showed in the picture." 7 calls by noon. Miguel arrived to find me scribbling names and numbers on whatever paper I could find. "We need a booking system," he said, surveying the chaos, "and maybe an answering machine." Channel 6 called Tuesday morning. Maria Rodriguez, host of Columbus Morning, wanted me for a live interview Friday. Something about inspiring stories of reinvention. "I don't know about television," I told her. "It's just a conversation, 5 minutes, maybe 10. People love comeback stories." Thursday night, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror trying to decide between 2 shirts Miguel had helped me pick out. The blue one made me look professional. The gray one seemed friendlier. Blue won. The television studio was smaller than I'd expected, cramped and hot under bright lights. Maria Rodriguez looked exactly like she did on screen, polished and energetic. "Don't look at the cameras," she advised during makeup. "Just talk to me like we're having coffee." The interview went faster than I'd anticipated. "You started this business at 68 after losing your housing. What gave you the courage to begin again?" "Wasn't about courage, was about necessity. You can feel sorry for yourself, or you can do something useful with your time. Your work is beautiful. Where did you learn these skills?" "My wife Margaret bought me tools years ago, said I had good hands for detailed work. Took me 30 years to prove her right. Any advice for other seniors considering major life changes? Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Start where you are with what you have. The phone in my workshop rang continuously for 3 days after the broadcast. Orders from across Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. Sarah created a waiting list that stretched into September. Miguel's 18-year-old daughter posted a video on TikTok showing me demonstrating dovetail joints. Her caption read, "My dad's boss is 68 and just started his business. Grandpa woodworker, just never too late, handmade his life." The video went viral locally. 15,000 views, hundreds of shares, comments from people sharing their own late-in-life success stories. "You're famous," Sarah announced, showing me the screen. "I'm notorious," I corrected. But the attention felt good. Validation I hadn't realized I needed. Strangers recognizing my worth, my skill, my contribution to the community. The Chamber of Commerce invited me to speak at their monthly luncheon. The Senior Center wanted me for a workshop on finding purpose after loss. Local business owners stopped me on the street to shake hands and share encouragement. Success beyond my wildest projections. Late one evening, after Sarah and Miguel had gone home, I sat alone in the workshop organizing order forms. The photo of Margaret watched from the corner of my workbench, her smile approving what I'd built. "Wish you could see this, sweetheart," I whispered to the empty room. The business was thriving. My bank account grew larger every month. I owned a house in a good neighborhood, drove a reliable truck, employed 3 people who depended on me. Everything I dreamed of achieving. But sitting there surrounded by the evidence of my success, I couldn't shake the feeling that something remained unfinished. Not the orders or the business plan or the expansion possibilities Miguel kept suggesting. The daughter who'd thrown me away like garbage probably still believed I was the helpless burden she'd painted me as. Somewhere across town, Amanda was living her life with Derek, maybe even grateful she'd freed herself from caring for her declining father. She had no idea what I'd become. My phone buzzed with another interview request. Local magazine wanted to feature me in their Ohio Entrepreneurs section. I set it aside for tomorrow, when I could think more clearly about what message I wanted to send. The workshop fell quiet except for the hum of the ventilation system. Outside, summer rain began pattering against the windows, a gentle rhythm that usually helped me think. Tonight, it only reminded me how alone success could feel when you had no family to share it with. September 15th, 2024. Exactly 1 year. I sat in my home office, mahogany desk polished to a mirror shine, reviewing the quarterly business reports Miguel had prepared. The numbers still amazed me. $15,000 profit last month alone. Sunlight streamed through the bay window overlooking my garden, where late roses bloomed in neat rows. The newspaper clipping lay beside my coffee cup. Local seniors' remarkable business success from last month's feature story. My photograph showed a confident man in a clean workshop, surrounded by the evidence of his achievements. The phone rang. Unknown number, but the area code was local. I almost let it go to voicemail. Solicitors had discovered my success, calling daily with investment opportunities and charity requests. Something about the number seemed familiar, though I couldn't place it. I answered on the 4th ring. "Hello? Daddy?" My hand tightened on the receiver. Amanda's voice sweet and tremulous, the tone she'd used as a child when she wanted something special. "Hello, Amanda. This is unexpected." "Oh, Daddy, how I've missed you. I've been thinking about you every day since that terrible misunderstanding. I'm so sorry it happened. It was all a mistake, a horrible mistake." The words tumbled out in a rehearsed rush. I leaned back in my leather chair, studying the garden while she spoke. "I saw you on television last month, and that article in the paper. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. I always knew you had it in you." "Did you?" "Of course. I was under so much stress last year. Work pressure, money problems, you know how it is. I wasn't thinking clearly." "I see. And now?" A pause. When she spoke again, the artificial warmth cracked slightly. "Well, that's actually why I'm calling. I'm in a bit of trouble, and I was hoping you might be able to help me." "What kind of trouble?" "It's complicated. My boyfriend Derek, he took out some loans in my name without telling me. Big loans. And now he's disappeared, and the creditors are coming after me for the money." "Derek?" The man in the expensive suit, kissing her goodbye in front of her house. I'd wondered when he would surface in this conversation. How much money? $2 million. The amount hung between us like smoke. I set down my coffee cup carefully, admiring how steady my hand remained. That's quite specific. I know it sounds like a lot, but you're doing so well now, and I'm desperate. I could lose everything. My job, my apartment, everything. Please, Daddy, you're the only one who can save me. $2 million. I wouldn't ask if I had any other choice. But you're family, and family helps family, right? I'll pay you back somehow, I promise. I walked to the wall safe behind my desk, entered the combination, and withdrew a manila folder I'd prepared months ago. Not for this exact scenario, but close enough. Amanda, I think I have something that might be even better for you than $2 million. Really? Hope bloomed in her voice. What do you mean? Let's meet tomorrow afternoon. There's much we need to discuss. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I knew you'd understand. You're the best father anyone could ask for. We'll see. Cornerstone Cafe downtown, 1 o'clock. I'll be there. And Daddy, I really do love you. The line went dead. I sat holding the receiver for a long moment, then opened the manila folder and reviewed its contents. 25 pages of carefully calculated expenses, organized by category, with supporting documentation and inflation adjustments. The anniversary timing was perfect. Exactly 1 year since she'd told me she didn't need an extra mouth to feed. Tomorrow, she would learn exactly what feeding that extra mouth had cost. Cornerstone Cafe buzzed with lunch crowd energy, business meetings over sandwiches, friends catching up over salads, the comfortable hum of afternoon conversation. I'd chosen a corner table with a clear view of the entrance, the manila folder positioned beside my coffee cup like a prop waiting for its scene. 1 o'clock exactly. Amanda appeared in the doorway, scanning the room with nervous energy. She wore a designer dress I recognized from her television days, navy blue with subtle pinstripes. Expensive, but not new. The kind of outfit someone wears when they need to look successful while counting every penny. She spotted me and approached with arms extended, forcing a reunion hug I accepted, but didn't return with enthusiasm. Her perfume was different, lighter, probably cheaper than what she used to wear. You look wonderful, Daddy. Success suits you. Thank you. Please sit. She settled across from me, eyes immediately drawn to the manila folder. Her fingers drummed against the table edge, anxiety poorly disguised as anticipation. I ordered you coffee, I said. Black, 2 sugars, unless your preferences have changed. No, that's perfect. You remember. I remember many things. The waitress delivered her coffee. Amanda added sugar with shaking hands, spilling granules across the table's surface. So, she attempted a bright smile. Did you bring it? The check? I brought something better. Her eyes fixed on the folder with obvious hunger. What do you mean? This is for you, Amanda. I opened the folder deliberately, turned it around, and slid it across the table. A gift more valuable than money. She pulled the papers toward her, confident smile faltering as she read the header. Child care expenses, Amanda Harris Carter, born March 15, 1982. Age of independence, September 15, 2007. Her face went pale. What is this supposed to mean? Keep reading. Her eyes moved down the page, taking in line items organized by category. Food and nutrition, $247,000 clothing and personal items, $156,000 education costs, $389,000 healthcare and dental, $178,000 housing allocation, $542,000 transportation, $134,000 entertainment and enrichment, $298,000 miscellaneous and inflation adjustments, $156,000 total, $200,000. She flipped through pages of supporting calculations, grocery receipts averaged and projected, tuition records, medical bill estimates, housing cost allocations based on square footage and duration of occupancy. This can't be serious. Her voice cracked. This is some kind of joke, right? Every number is carefully researched, conservative estimates actually. I could have included emotional labor, but that seemed too subjective. You can't charge me for being your daughter. I'm not charging you anything. She stared at me across the table, papers trembling in her hands. Other diners were beginning to notice our conversation, heads turning at her raised voice. Then what is this? Education. You said you didn't need an extra mouth to feed, but for 25 years, I fed your extra mouth. This document represents the true cost of that mouth. Every meal, every piece of clothing, every opportunity I provided. But you're my father. That's what parents do. Exactly. And now you owe me exactly what you claimed was too much to bear. The folder slipped from her numb fingers, pages scattering across the cafe table like a paper avalanche. The total stared up at us in bold print. $20,000. I need that $2 million to survive, she whispered, and I invested $2.1 million in raising you. Funny how the numbers work out. You said you didn't need an extra mouth to feed, I continued, my voice steady while Amanda's world crumbled around her. But for 25 years, I fed your extra mouth. Every single day. She clutched the scattered papers like lifelines, her designer dress creating an ironic backdrop for her desperation. The cafe hummed with lunch conversation around us, but our table had become an island of reckoning. This isn't fair! Her voice rose above the ambient noise. No parent does this. No court would uphold this. This isn't about courts, it's about education. A businessman at the neighboring table glanced over, then quickly returned to his sandwich when he caught my calm stare. Look at page 3, I said. Education expenses, private school from kindergarten through 8th grade, $38,000. High school tuition, books, uniforms, $61,000. College tuition, room and board, graduate degree, $290,000. I believed in your potential, invested in your future. I was just a child. I didn't ask to be born. Page 7. Healthcare costs, pediatrician visits, orthodontics, emergency room trips, prescription medications, $178,000. Your well-being was always my priority. She flipped frantically through the pages, as if searching for an error that would invalidate the entire calculation. Housing allocation, I continued. Your bedroom, your bathroom, utilities, property taxes allocated for your space. $542,000 over 25 years. Never charge you rent. But you're my father. This is what parents do. Enrichment activities. Piano lessons you begged for, then quit after 6 months. Summer camps. Family vacations to places you wanted to visit. Art supplies, books, toys. $298,000 building memories you apparently discarded. The waitress hovered nearby, uncertain whether to approach our table. Amanda noticed her watching and lowered her voice, humiliation adding to her desperation. I'll lose everything if I can't pay Derek's debts. The creditors will ruin me. Derek. I spoke his name like a diagnosis. The man in the expensive suit, the one who kisses you goodbye on your front porch. Her face went white. How do you... October 20th last year, I came to see you, brought a peace offering, saw your real reason for needing space. You were spying on me? I was visiting my daughter, found her with a stranger who turned out to be a fraud. Rather poetic, don't you think? She pressed her hands against her temples. Please, I'm begging you, help me this once. We can be a family again. Page 12, daily necessities. 3 meals a day for 9,125 days. Formula as an infant, school lunches, dinner every evening until you moved out. Never once questioned whether you deserved it. Mom would be ashamed of what you're doing. Your mother taught me that love includes teaching consequences. She'd understand this perfectly. A young couple at a corner table was discreetly filming with their phone. Our conversation had become entertainment for strangers, which seemed fitting. Amanda's humiliation was as public as my eviction had been private. This isn't revenge, I said, gathering the papers back into their folder. It's education. You need to understand the value of what you rejected. I didn't reject you. I was stressed, overwhelmed. You threw away a father who would have given everything. Now you want to buy back what you discarded, but the price is exactly what that everything cost. I stood from the table, leaving exact change for my coffee beside the empty cup. The folder went under my arm like a briefcase full of justice. Every parent invests in their child's future, I said. I'm helping you calculate the true cost of independence. Use this as a lesson about appreciating what you have before you lose it. Amanda remained seated, staring at the receipt, total still spread across the table, $2,100,000. The precise amount needed to save her from Derek's debts, plus the symbolic $100,000 representing interest on a year of ingratitude. Where are you going? She called after me. Back to my life. The one I built after learning I didn't need an extra mouth to feed either. I walked through the cafe's lunch crowd, past curious stares and whispered conversations. Behind me, Amanda sat alone with the papers that proved exactly how much that unwanted mouth had cost to feed. The afternoon sunlight felt warm on my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk. For the first time in a year, the weight of unfinished business had lifted from my shoulders. Justice, I'd learned, was simply education delivered at the perfect moment. 3 weeks later, I sat across from Robert Matthews in his law office, the manila folder now part of a larger briefcase filled with supporting documents. 25 years of receipts, bank statements, medical records, educational expenses, everything needed to prove my case in court. This is unusual, Matthews admitted, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, but legally sound. You documented systematic financial investment with clear evidence the recipient explicitly rejected its value. I want acknowledgement, not necessarily collection. The court will decide enforcement. Our job is proving the debt exists. Franklin County Courthouse buzzed with typical civil case activity when our hearing date arrived. I wore my best suit, navy blue, tailored to fit my current confident posture, rather than the defeated man from a year ago. Amanda sat across the courtroom with a public defender, her face drawn and pale. She'd lost weight, her designer clothes hanging loose. The sight should have satisfied me, but mostly I felt tired. Judge Patricia Williams reviewed our filing with methodical attention. Gray-haired, probably in her 60s, she reminded me of Margaret in her no-nonsense approach to problems. Mr. Carter, please present your case. I stood slowly, pulling documents from the briefcase with practiced efficiency. Your Honor, for 25 years I provided comprehensive support for my daughter Amanda Harris. Food, housing, education, healthcare, transportation, enrichment activities. Total documented investment, $2,100,000. And the defendant's obligation to repay? She explicitly stated she didn't need an extra mouth to feed when evicting me from her home. This represents rejection of my investment's value and, I believe, creates a moral debt with legal foundation. Amanda's attorney, a young man barely out of law school, stood shakily. Your Honor, this represents normal parental obligation. No written contract existed for repayment. The defendant was a minor for most of this period and couldn't consent to debt obligations. Judge Williams examined the expense documentation I'd prepared: educational receipts, medical bills, housing cost calculations, food expense averages, every number researched and verified. Mr. Carter, walk me through these categories. Education costs $389,000. Private school tuition, college expenses, graduate degree support. I believed in her potential. I presented each section methodically: healthcare investment, housing allocation, daily necessities, enrichment activities. 25 years of choosing her welfare over my own comfort. And the defendant's current position? Amanda's lawyer cleared his throat. Financial hardship due to circumstances beyond her control. What circumstances? Fraudulent debt incurred by her former boyfriend. $2 million in fraudulent debt? Approximately, yes. Judge Williams looked between the two amounts on her papers. Amanda's need exactly matching my documented investment, minus $100,000. Coincidental, the judge observed dryly. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Witnesses testified, Miguel describing my character transformation, former neighbors recounting Amanda's treatment of me, bank officials confirming expense documentation. Amanda finally took the stand, forced to acknowledge receiving every documented support item. When asked about the extra mouth comment, she broke down completely. I was stressed, overwhelmed. I didn't mean, but you said it? Yes. And you evicted your father based on this statement? Yes. Judge Williams reviewed her notes for 20 minutes that felt like hours. The courtroom remained completely silent, except for Amanda's quiet sobbing. This case presents unusual circumstances. While parental support typically creates no repayment obligation, the defendant's explicit rejection of that support's value creates unique legal territory. My heart began racing. The court finds the plaintiff provided documented services and goods with reasonable expectation of gratitude and family respect. The defendant's stated position that this support constituted an unwanted burden creates, in effect, a moral debt with legal foundation. Amanda gasped audibly. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,100,000 plus court costs and reasonable attorney fees. The gavel fell like thunder. Amanda collapsed in her chair, her attorney scrambling to support her. Across the courtroom, I felt no triumph, only a strange emptiness where anger used to live. Justice had been served, but justice, I was learning, felt surprisingly hollow when delivered to someone you once loved unconditionally. 2 months after the court victory, I signed the lease on a modest office space downtown. The brass nameplate read, Carter Foundation for Senior Independence, my answer to the emptiness that followed legal vindication. Mrs. Rodriguez, the social worker from my shelter days, accepted my offer to become the foundation's first employee. You sure about this, Mr. Carter? Running a nonprofit is demanding work. I'm sure. We're going to help seniors who've been abandoned by their families. People like I was. The irony wasn't lost on me. Amanda's cruelty had created the motivation for this work, but I couldn't feel grateful for her behavior. Some lessons came too expensive. Our first case walked through the door on a Tuesday morning. Robert Chen, 73, evicted by his son over gambling debts. The story felt familiar. Family tension over money, harsh words that couldn't be taken back, an elderly person with nowhere to go. My son said I was a burden, Robert explained, hands shaking as he filled out our intake form. 20 years I helped him with his mortgage, put his kids through college. One bad streak at the casino, and suddenly I'm the problem. We found Robert temporary housing and enrolled him in gambling addiction counseling. 3 weeks later, father and son attended our family mediation session. Sometimes people need consequences to understand what they're throwing away, I told them both, but families can heal if everyone commits to change. They reconciled over Thanksgiving dinner. Robert sent me a photo, 3 generations around a dinner table, laughing at some shared joke. November brought 15 more cases. December doubled that number. Seniors abandoned by adult children, families torn apart by misunderstanding and selfishness, but also stories of reconciliation when people chose growth over pride. I saw Amanda occasionally at the grocery store where she'd found work. Cashier position, hourly wages, nothing glamorous. She'd lost 30 pounds, looked tired, but not defeated. When our eyes met across the produce section, she nodded politely before looking away. Linda, her manager, mentioned Amanda during a casual conversation at the foundation's holiday event. That girl's a hard worker, shows up early, stays late when we need coverage. Customers like her, she's patient, really listens when they have problems. You sound surprised. Well, she started out pretty entitled, designer clothes, complaining about everything. But something changed. She actually seems grateful now for what she has. I studied Amanda from across the store, watching her help an elderly customer count change. The woman she'd become bore little resemblance to the person who'd evicted me. Hardship had stripped away her artifice, revealing someone I barely recognized. That evening, I reviewed foundation cases in my home office. 47 seniors assisted, 12 successful family reconciliations, $280,000 distributed in emergency aid, numbers that represented real people, real healing. Margaret's photo watched from the bookshelf, her smile suggesting approval. She'd always believed in second chances, in the possibility of growth through adversity. But she'd also believed in consequences, that real change required real cost. The foundation work felt meaningful in ways the court victory hadn't. Revenge provided justice, but no satisfaction. Helping others created purpose beyond personal conflict. My phone rang near midnight. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Foundation business often came at odd hours. Mr. Carter, this is Linda from Morrison's Grocery. I manage Amanda. My pulse quickened. Is everything all right? She collapsed during her shift tonight. Exhaustion, the doctor said. Been working double shifts, barely eating. She gave me your number as emergency contact. Emergency contact. After everything we'd been through, I was still the person she called when her world fell apart. Which hospital? Mount Carmel East, room 314. I drove through empty December streets, past Christmas decorations that seemed to mock my complicated feelings. Anger and concern warred in my chest. She'd destroyed our relationship, but she was still my daughter. The hospital room was small, sterile. Amanda lay sleeping, IV drip feeding nutrients her body desperately needed. Without makeup, She looked young and vulnerable, like the child I'd raised rather than the woman who'd broken my heart. A letter lay on the bedside table, my name written across the envelope in her careful handwriting. The nurse said she'd been working on it between IV treatments. I didn't open it, not yet. Instead, I sat in the uncomfortable visitor's chair and watched my daughter sleep, wondering if consequences had taught her what love couldn't. Christmas Eve morning found me in my study, Foundation annual report spread across the mahogany desk like evidence of purpose. 47 seniors helped, 12 families reconciled, a year of meaningful work that had healed wounds I didn't know existed. Amanda's letter lay unopened beside Margaret's photo. 3 weeks since the hospital incident, and I still couldn't decide whether reading it would help or hurt. The Foundation's success had attracted regional attention. Cities across Ohio wanted similar programs, media interviews, speaking engagements, recognition from the mayor's office. Everything Amanda had craved now flowed naturally from work that mattered. But success felt incomplete without family to share it. I picked up the letter, running my thumb across Amanda's familiar handwriting. Margaret's voice whispered in my memory. Love means giving people room to grow, even when growth hurts. The envelope tore easily. Dear Dad, I don't know if I have the right to call you that anymore, but I don't know what else to say. I've started this letter 100 times, thrown away every draft because nothing seemed honest enough. You were right about everything, the money, the gratitude, the value of what you gave me. I threw away a father who would have sacrificed anything for my happiness, and I did it for the stupidest, most selfish reasons. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking for money. I know that's what you'd think first. I'm working now, earning my own way, learning what you tried to teach me about the value of things. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. Every dollar in that calculation represented love I was too blind to see. Every sacrifice you made while I complained about not having enough. Every patient explanation when I acted like the world owed me something. The woman who told you she didn't need an extra mouth to feed was someone I'm ashamed to remember. She threw away the most valuable thing in her life because she confused love with burden. I see families in the grocery store, parents with adult children who visit, who call, who remember birthdays and holidays. I watch them and think about what I destroyed, not just your love, but the possibility of growing old with family who cares. Your foundation work is beautiful. I read about it online. See the families you've helped heal. I'm proud of what you've built, proud that my father chose to help others instead of just punishing me. I know I have no right to expect anything from you, but if someday you can think of me without anger, that would be enough. If you can remember the little girl who used to help you in the garage before she forgot how to appreciate what she had. I love you, Dad. I should have said it more when saying it mattered. Amanda. The letter trembled in my hands. Outside, snow began falling, covering Columbus in pristine white that made everything look clean and new. Margaret's photo seemed to nod approval. She'd always believed people could change, that consequences combined with love could transform even the hardest hearts. I walked to the Foundation office through empty Christmas streets. Mrs. Rodriguez had left detailed reports about our newest cases. 3 more seniors abandoned by family, but also 2 successful reconciliations from earlier interventions. The mission statement hung framed on my office wall. Every person has value worth recognizing. Words born from my own experience with rejection, now guiding work that helped others discover their worth. Amanda's letter deserved a response, not forgiveness exactly. Trust had to be rebuilt slowly, carefully, but acknowledgement that growth was possible, that consequences could teach what love alone couldn't. I pulled out my business letterhead and began writing. Amanda, your letter shows understanding I wasn't sure you'd ever develop. Recognizing our mistakes is the first step toward becoming better people. I created the foundation because being abandoned taught me how many others suffer the same rejection. Your letter suggests that losing everything taught you lessons you needed to learn. I'm not ready for family dinners or birthday calls. Trust requires time and consistent proof of change. But I'm proud that you're earning your own way, proud that you finally understand the value of what we had. If you continue growing, continue treating others with the respect you learned too late to give me, then perhaps someday we can build something new. Not the relationship we had, but something better, based on mutual respect rather than obligation. The foundation will continue helping seniors who've experienced what I experienced. Your transformation, if it proves genuine, gives me hope that other families can heal. Consider this letter my Christmas gift, not forgiveness, but possibility. Dad. I sealed the envelope and walked it to the mailbox myself. Snow crunched under my feet, Christmas lights twinkled in nearby windows, and for the first time in over a year, I felt something like peace. Margaret's voice echoed in the winter air. Love isn't just giving everything they want. Sometimes love means making them earn what they've lost. Back in my study, surrounded by foundation reports and photos of successful reconciliations, I understood that justice and love weren't opposites. Both required understanding consequences. Both demanded growth. Amanda would have to prove herself worthy of a second chance. But for the first time since that terrible September evening, I believed she might. The foundation would continue its work. Families would heal. And maybe, if we both kept growing, mine would too. Outside, snow continued falling, covering old mistakes with fresh possibilities. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.